Kia ora guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Adam Gilliland, and today we're going to go over the basic settings of how to use your camera. Let's get into it. So today we're at the beautiful Vermilion Lakes, and just going to get straight into it, how to do the basics of your camera. First off, what we're going to do, so I got my Nikon camera here. So what we're going to do is, at the very side we have a M button, flick that to manual. Down here is autofocus or manual focus. I'm going to flick that to manual. So to get this out of the auto for a Nikon, hold down this button, and we're going to flick this to the manual setting. This is what we're going to be working with today. So looking on the back of this camera here, the top one here, this is your shutter. This is your f-stop or your aperture, and then we have the ISO. Now with the ISO, your aperture and your shutter, you're going to be combining these three to create a photo. So we'll start with the aperture. Think of it as your eye. So the pupil of your eye, when it's at a 1.4 or 2.8, it's open the widest, so therefore it's going to let in the most light. So it means it's going to be shallow. It's going to give you a shallow depth of field, so everything in the back is going to be blurry, and then it's not all the stuff at the front is going to be in focus. So if you're doing a landscape photo, there is animals around me. Where did it go? So if you're doing a landscape photo, if you put it at say f11 to f16, it's pretty much going to be all the way in focus. Unless you've got the camera to the lowest part of the ground, the very front part won't be in focus, therefore you need a higher aperture. So this is the aperture just moving. So this one will go down to a f4. So that's how my lowest aperture for this lens. So all lenses are different. So the one I have on my Sony that I'm shooting with, it goes down to 2.8, which is great for night photography. If we bring this all the way up to f16, it goes to f22. Now a little tip, if you want to do a starburst, keep it at f22, shoot that sun, and you're going to get a big starburst. It's quite cool. Now your shutter speed. Now if you want a fast shutter speed, you're going to get the less motion in it. So if you have a shutter speed of 160th of a second, it's going to be a fast shutter speed. It's going to snap just like that. Snap. So if you have a long exposure, say 20 seconds or 6 seconds, it's going to be it amounts. Your shutter opens for that full 6 seconds before that's how long it takes this photo for. So if you're wanting, say you're catching someone running, you have a fast shutter speed, quickly snap those photos, you get them on point every time. If you want to do a little bit of motion blur with it, just slow your shutter speed down a little bit, say 60th of a second, under 60th of a second, you get the perfect picture in the focus, but there'll be like dragging behind them. So it's sort of like a ghost figure behind them. It's quite cool effect, but that's how you pull that off with the shutter. Now this is the shutter up here, so we can bring this all the way up. That's going to be taking the fastest shutter at 4000, that's the highest it can go on this camera. Whereas if you come down, it starts getting slower and slower. Now, the big thing here, it's going to be another part 2 for this. See these dashes right here? This means 1 full second. So the shutter is going to be open for 1 second, and that's the photo. So if you're taking a night photography shot, say you're doing the Northern Lights, you're doing the Milky Way, bring it up to about 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. You want those long streaky clouds, bring it up to 30. If you have a shutter release cable, you can put it on bulb and you can put it as long as you want to, but That's another little tip for you. So ISO is the last one. You're just combining 3 of them, you're making one image. Now with the ISO, it's pretty much like an artificial light. Now if it's just a bit too dim, but you want to keep that same shutter speed, you want to keep that same aperture, this is at like exactly the same spot, you don't want a shallow depth of field, or you just want to keep it at, say, aperture 11, and then you want to keep the shutter at, say, 200th of a second. You want to keep those 2, but it still looks too dark and you're not sure how to do that. That's where the ISO comes into it. So you bring up your ISO, and that will start bringing your artificial light into your image, which will make your image pop. Another thing with the ISO, now when you're doing an ISO, if you're doing like a landscape photo, you shoot at 100 ISO. That's going to be a perfectly smooth photo. Now when you start gradually bringing up your ISO, you start getting a bit of a grainy effect. So say 1000 ISO, 1600, 4000, you're going to get a lot of noise, you're going to get a lot of grain to it, which doesn't make a banger shot. See this little line here? Now if you bring this up, this is going to be underexposed, so your whole image is going to be very dark, very black. Now if you bring it in the middle, it's going to be perfect. If you bring it under, it's going to be overexposed. So what you want to do, just keep it in the middle there. So we got f10, so aperture at 10, ISO, shutter at 100, ISO at 400. Took a shot, and that's what came out. Another quick tip, over the side here I have a zoom in. Now if I want to zoom in here, I have it on manual focus. Now I can just crank this. So it goes in focus. So you can see how it's out of focus. Crank it into focus. Boom, take a shot and go line out. Here we are. So that's pretty much a quick way how to capture your photo, get you going out there, get in some shooting, get off that automatic mode. So if this has helped you, let me know, give me some feedback, hit that notification button, subscribe, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace. Wow, you never would have guessed what happened. So it's been really warm here in Banff, and after doing this video, I broke through the ice, I fell in the water. So now I smell like phosphate, and oh well, now I just smell. Better go have a shower. See you next time. Peace.